Hello and welcome to Bristol News, the biggest stories from across the city coming up on the programme. Flying the Flag, a 2-week campaign to promote HIV testing is launched on College Green. Plus music to our ears, Europe's first black and minority ethnic orchestra inspires Bristol's upcoming musicians. And you can get in touch, use the hashtag Bristol News. But first, a 2-week-long programme has been launched at College Green to raise awareness of HIV. In the run-up to World AIDS Day, the Lord Mayor has raised the HIV red ribbon flag, along with launching a programme of events, talks and fundraisers. Whilst diagnoses are down, there is still said to be a stigma attached to HIV, along with discrimination being a prominent issue. With much work still to be done, charities and support groups are banding together to give HIV the finger. But bear with us, that's not as rude as it sounds, said Carter reports.
A gesture, but a bold one nonetheless. Think back a few decades and neither awareness nor treatment for HIV was anywhere near the stage that it's at today. Something that no one knows better than those with the condition.
I feel good that I'm still around, because also now I've got like a 15-year-old daughter and I really want to kind of live long enough to kind of maybe become a granny, who knows, from kind of going to terminal diagnosis and being told I was going to die within the next few years when I was 24 to kind of have a massive party in Portugal with my friends and family for my 50th birthday last May was fantastic,
The raising of the red ribbon flag offers the opportunity to look back on progress made. However, looking ahead, there's still much to do.
Well, I think it's definitely both. We have made amazing progress, like medically speaking. People living with HIV now have a normal lifespan, so that's absolutely incredible. But on the other hand, there is still a lot of stigma and discrimination that people we work with, are facing on a daily basis. So that's something, that we still need to all work to end stigma, and that's certainly what people are worried about, and there are instances of it still happening, unfortunately.
With much stigma and misinformation still to be tackled, even in today's society, education and signposting are key.
They could certainly go and ask if they had any concerns. They could go and speak to their GP or practice nurse. And finally, if they went onto the Unity website or Unity Facebook page on Monday, they will find a number of addresses where they can go and collect free self-testing kits, which they could do at home. This year, the national campaign is called Give HIV the Finger. And so we're asking people to give HIV the finger. And this means to have a finger prick test, which could then tell somebody what their status is. So about 10,500 people in England don't know their HIV status.
So for those unclear on their HIV status and unsure of where to turn, the advice is simple.
There's no good time to have an HIV positive diagnosis, but again, if you happen to be, there isn't a better time to get diagnosed as it is today, because you're going to be put on antiretroviral medication that's really going to keep you well, and it's going to keep you, more importantly, is going to keep you undetectable, which means you won't be able to pass on the virus to someone else independently of what kind of sexual practices you might have,
Unfortunately, we still see a significant number of diagnoses every year, as well as a Bristol rate of late diagnosis higher than the national average. The coming days are about combating those statistics. I'm Ed Carter for Made in Bristol TV.
Thanks, Ed. News from around Bristol now, and it's said that commuters in the southwest spend 24 working days a year travelling. According to TUC analysis, getting to and from work now takes commutes an extra 5 minutes a day compared with a decade ago. Rail commuters face the longest journeys, taking an average of 2 hours and 12 minutes a day, an increase of 4 minutes on the last decade. Drivers spend 52 minutes on the road to and from work, whilst bus commuters set aside 39 minutes a day. The South West TUC blames growing commutes on low government spending on transport, among other factors. Elsewhere, Avon and Somerset Police will be using spit guards in the new year. They'll join 25 forces already using the protective gear. Police say the aim of using them is to protect officers who work in difficult and challenging circumstances. With being spat at comes a risk of HIV, hepatitis and tuberculosis. Since April 2017, out of 487 recorded assaults against officers, 79 have involved spitting. Specially trained officers will use guards in situations where someone says they are going to spit, has attempted to, or has done so already. In other news, an elderly woman has been knocked over after an incident of shoplifting. Police want to speak to anyone who can identify the man in the CCTV footage in which an elderly woman is seen being knocked over. Just after 12:30 p.m. on Thursday, the 26th of October, a security guard in the horse fair chased a man suspected of stealing items from a store. The suspected offender ran along the horse fair and knocked into an 81-year-old woman, causing her to fall into a shop window. The woman suffered a broken wrist and bruising. If anyone recognises the man, you can call the non-emergency number, which is 101. Now, we love our wildlife here on Bristol News, and a local school have now decided to help an animal at Bristol Zoo who is facing extinction. Bristol Redmaids High School is helping lemurs by sponsoring the Lemur Walkthrough. The sponsorship money will go towards looking after the ring-tailed and crowned lemurs, as well as helping conservation work. Lemurs are under threat as their natural habitats are being destroyed by cutting down trees to plant crops. Pupils from years 1 and 2 at Redmaids High School visited the zoo to unveil a plaque celebrating the partnership. Well done to everybody there for that. Well, next, it's very much music to our ears. An orchestra is visiting several schools in Bristol who all serve communities which feature in Bristol City Council's Deprivation in Bristol map. Europe's first black and minority ethnic orchestra are performing to some of the most deprived children in Bristol to teach them about classical music, but also the life story of Joseph Bouillon, an 18th century black composer. The aim is to encourage children to experience a classical music concert or maybe even try an instrument themselves. Our reporter Yaz Cook went to experience this all for herself.
The Chiniki Bristol Outreach Project is a collaboration between Europe's first majority black and ethnic group orchestra, St George's Bristol, and the Bristol Ensemble's Preludes Music Project, in a bid to help education through the power of music.
I doubt many of them have seen a string quartet play in front of them, so close especially. So as soon as we hit the first chord of the Mozart, a few of them in the front row sort of jumped to attention and were just listening. Some of them were sort of doing some air violin, some of them just sort of fidgeting with the music, but lots of smiles, so that was good. Being a musician, part of what you do is to pass on to the next generation everything you've learnt, you've experienced, and just to let them experience the enjoyment of music. Throughout my playing life, I've always had people coming up to me and saying, there's not very many black people in classical music, and now we're a whole orchestra.
The orchestra was visiting schools in our city that are in the top 10% of the most deprived areas nationally. The Prelude project started in 2009, bringing classical music into the classroom.
Well, a lot of our great pop stars were classically trained. It's a fantastic way of training if you want to do music of any kind. And on top of that, it helps so much with your education. Every child in the school is going to have the opportunity to learn an instrument, and wow, what an effect that will have on their education and their future, because they can look and see, actually, if I do music, I could be all sorts of things. Children this age just treat music as music. So they don't have any preconceptions. Children who follow a structured music education, and it's got to be structured. It's not just random. You've got to follow through, and like we will follow through on this concert today, and we'll talk about the pieces they played and things.
From Mozart to the 18th century black composer Joseph Bouillon, the orchestra, fresh from the BBC Proms, got rave reviews and full marks from the students.
My favourite was probably the cello, because I thought when it goes really low, it was actually quite cool. I think they were absolutely brilliant.
They knew all their notes they were playing, and especially the cello, because it was the biggest one. I would stick to any string instruments, or I would move on to the drum.
I don't think they could play very well. I thought they could play great. It was excellent.
25% of children in Easton come from income-deprived families. But with projects like this, it's hoped music can shatter stereotypes and provide a solid base for the future. I'm Yaz for Made in Bristol TV.
Yeah, wonderful stuff there. Thanks, Yaz, for that. Hopefully that will make a real difference. That's one of the many positive local stories we cover here on Made in Bristol. Do get in touch with us. Tweet us at Made in Bristol TV. That's at Made in Bristol TV. And you can tell us if you've got a story that you want us to cover. You can also find us on Facebook too. Search for Made in Bristol TV on there. But this is Bristol News, and the biggest stories from across the city of Bristol are still coming up, including hate awareness. Hate crime takes many forms in our city, but how does it affect us? And Isle of Man mission, an army veteran is preparing to take on the so-called deadly Isle of Man TT with one arm. Do stay with us.